All right, so 12:05, so I think we should probably go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining the LivePeer community call. It's interactive through Google Hangouts, but a lot of people watch at crypto.livepeer.tv where we live stream, and we are recording this so we can upload it for later viewing for those in the community who couldn't join live. We host one of these community calls every 2 weeks on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern time. So feel free to set a calendar reminder. Anyone is welcome to join and drop in. What we had planned for this week was basically three things. We want to do a quick update on the development progress of Streamflow, which is LivePeer's upcoming scalability release. And then what I wanted to do is actually something more for people who are newer to the LivePeer community, which is to go through the process of using the LivePeer Explorer and showing how to bond, unbond, withdraw tokens, talk about claiming earnings and fees, because the community's been growing a lot recently. I think there's over 50 people a day joining the Discord, and we're getting a lot of kind of new introductory questions through Telegram and through Discord and the forum about how to kind of just participate in the protocol and stake tokens and deal with some of the nuances that are a little trickier. So I want to cover that. If you're already an expert on that, you don't necessarily need to stick around for it. And then finally, there's a lot of questions that have come in around that and other topics on the Discord. And of course, this can be open for Q&A as well at the end. So we'll cover those three things plus anything that anyone else wants to bring up or talk about. Cool. So starting with a quick progress update on Streamflow. I won't cover everything about what Streamflow is, but essentially, if you think of LivePeer Alpha that's released today on mainnet as functional, and people can use that for broadcasting and transcoding video, and it works, and it certainly all the token economics work, the staking and whatnot, and it's helped bootstrap and test the network, but it's not necessarily scalable, reliable, and cost-effective for use at scale with many hundreds of concurrent streams. And that's okay. It was an alpha. We had a roadmap that we need to iterate on, but we've packaged together a lot of updates, a lot of work, moving some dependencies off the blockchain, updating the verification scheme to make the network reliable, usable at scale. All of those packaged together are called Streamflow. We're currently running a version of it on an internal testnet with high degree and growing degree of success, and a couple more months of work to do to get it to mainnet. So that's what Streamflow is. As far as the last 2 weeks, things that we've made progress on, Eric is here. Eric, I don't know if you wanted to give a little bit of detail around that. I'm happy to do it if you weren't prepared for it, but do you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah, I can give a quick update. So on the engineering front, we have been working on a few different big areas. One is we're working on the research and of the protocol, and especially around this micropayment mechanism called probabilistic micropayment, and the modification of our staking protocol to allow more nodes to operate on the network. So we'll have really good progress there, and I think in the next few weeks we should be able to publish a kind of a result summary of all the research discussions that we've been having and all the research work that we've been doing. So definitely keep an eye out for that. What that enables us to do is to have this frictionless micropayment mechanism, not be affected by the scalability challenges introduced by Ethereum transaction throughputs or limitations around that. And some of the other efforts that are going on, we have been working on a tool that helps you deploy an entire LivePeer cluster. We're calling it the LivePeer Network Harness. And basically, we've been using that to deploy test deployments that includes a private Ethereum blockchain, a deployed version of the LivePeer protocol, and LivePeer nodes that are transcoding and streaming video between each other, right? So we're using that. We were using that at the beginning as like a testing mechanism, but now we're starting to use it more as a deployment mechanism for serving real users. And on that front, we are starting to talk to some of the video developer friends that we know to get feedback around this product that we've been creating around the network that basically helps people transcode video, and we've been getting a lot of really good feedback on that front. And a few other things that we're working on. One is we're working on enabling GPU transcoding so that we can actually run the transcoding jobs on GPUs in a really and which will dramatically lower the cost of the video transcoding. We're also working on increasing the resilience and scalability of the streaming infrastructure itself, and that's through using different distributed computing mechanisms like round robin or having redundancy between the transcoders to ensure that the reliability is very high. I think our goal, like our short to midterm goal there, is to have 99.999% success rate in all the transcoding that's happening on the network. So that's kind of a high level update of what's been happening, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the call.
Well, thanks, Eric. Is anyone from Epic Labs on the call by any chance? Doesn't look like it. So this is a team in Spain that's actually doing a collaboration with us on solving for how do you verify that video that was encoded on GPUs was done at high enough quality and correctly, such that we can unlock kind of the GPU encoding on the LivePeer network. And they published some of their early findings in their research in a big blog post. I just shared it to the chat here, but if you Google Epic Labs LivePeer, you'll see third or fourth link is a post about assessing video quality metrics. It's really technical, focused a lot on the internals of video transcoding, but it's really interesting, kind of cutting edge work in the video industry. And I think a lot of video developers will find it interesting because it just has to do with how do you assess the quality of the output of transcoding and how do you optimize that over time. So really excited that we're collaborating with them on this as well.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep, cool. One other thing I wanted to mention around micropayments. So this seamless payment mechanism that moves a lot of the payments off chain. I know John and on our team has been doing a lot of good research work trying to solve for double spend security in probabilistic micropayments. So how do you, when you receive payment, how do you know you'll be able to actually cash it in on chain and that the buyer of these transcoding services is not double spending across lots of providers on the network? And I think actually this week or last week, we arrived at some really nice milestone there where we were able to calculate kind of the trade-offs in terms of, if you deposit a certain amount of Ether to kind of secure your payments on this network, then that means you can work with a certain number of orchestrators on this network. And it's all a trade-off. We'll be able to optimize and move these things over time. Basically, a big broadcaster who's using this at scale that wants to work with over 100 orchestrators all around the world, will have an idea of how much you have to deposit in order to secure that. And it's not necessarily a trivial amount. It's the order of low thousands of dollars worth of Ether if you want to actually use many thousands of dollars worth of encoding services on this network over time. And it shouldn't be a blocker for someone using this network at scale. Then if someone wants to use this network kind of as an individual or at low scale, then the trade-off is maybe working with a smaller set of regional orchestrators on this network, as opposed to hundreds or thousands spread all around the world at once. And you can dig into the research. It's technical, but it's becoming real and concrete and practical, and know the trade-offs. So it's kind of a nice research result that we're honing in on as well. Cool. Any questions about Streamflow before we move on to bonding, state or staking, withdrawing, claiming fees?
Hi, Doug. It's Chris from Chainflow.
Hey, Chris.
Hey. Where's the best place for transcoders to keep an eye on what we can do to start preparing? For example, if you're going to be launching a more public testnet for Streamflow and things like that. And then is it still the transcoder channel of Discord?
Yeah, I think the transcoder channel of Discord is the best place, and we'll certainly, at transcoders, anything important where there's something actionable to do. So as far as like actionable steps, that's the best place. We also will send out an email when there's something highly actionable. If anyone is running a transcoder or wants to run a transcoder and doesn't have the transcoder's label in Discord, just DM me, let me know. I can give you that, because it's a good way to notify people. And then, for those who are actually interested in following with the development, I think following the research repository on GitHub is where you get all of those details. But it's really in depth, right? There's a lot of back and forth discussion on research topics that won't have anything to do with the practicality of actually running a node anytime soon.
Okay, thanks. And then have any specs started to be developed for orchestrator setups and transcoder setups?
As far as like recommended architectures and whatnot.
Either architectures or system specs, for servers and things like that.
I haven't seen anything formalized around that yet, because obviously these are just processes that run on server instances, and so you could certainly do it with low capacity hardware. But the belief is Streamflow is this competitive environment. We're actually racing to perform the transcoding effectively. Then certainly on the GPU side, we'd be looking at having a set of NVIDIA or AMD GPUs, and on the CPU side, I think you'd want at least 4 cores on your processor, and maybe Josh or Philip, if they're on the call, have a little more info on that. But I don't think we have like rigorous benchmarks yet on performance across different hardware.
Okay.
No, we didn't do the benchmarks yet, but there's much to come, and we expect at least 4 times the throughput of a GPU, of a state-of-the-art GPU, compared to a state-of-the-art CPU.
Okay. And on that note, just to confirm my understanding, so an orchestrator essentially sets up the transcoding relationship and then pretty much steps out of the stream. So essentially the orchestrator is not in between the stream of the broadcaster and the transcoder. Is that right? So the orchestrator doesn't have to have the same horsepower to actually pass the videos.
That's correct. One orchestrator should do orchestration for many streams. Exact benchmarks also missing here, but we're trying to have, of course, a couple of magnitudes being the target. So one transcoder, if it's on CPU, might really only do 1 or 2 adaptive bitrate transcoding in full volume on one single transcoder, but an orchestrator should be able to handle or distribute jobs among many of these transcoders. So you don't have the same resource requirements on the orchestrator side as you have on the transcoder side. And it moves the whole thing to a type of microservice architecture.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's helpful. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the questions related to transcoding, Chris. To give a little preview, one thing we talked about for the call in 2 weeks is actually setting up a more transcoder-focused community call and discussion where we talk a little bit about kind of transcoding orchestration on the live peer network. We talk about some of the new campaigns and progress with some of these experiments around governance tools like the video DAC, or the node you're running and how you're operating transparently with the community, and then also touch on what's going on in the Cosmos ecosystem, where there's a lot of overlap between the validator architecture and the live peer orchestrator architecture. And so I think 2 weeks from now we can set a good agenda and have good discussions. It'd be great if you and the other transcoders are up for joining that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Doug, Nelson here. So yeah, if there's any transcoders on the call, if you'd like to reach out to me on Discord in the planning of that call, and we could help get your feedback on what you'd like to talk about and sort of help structure the call better, that'd be great. I also had one other question, Doug. Sorry if this was already covered, but in terms of Streamflow, what do we sort of expect the rough timings of when an early testnet for that could possibly be coming into effect?
Eric, do you have the date on the product roadmap for the hopeful public testnet?
Yeah, we are aiming to release a version by the end of May, but of course that's it's highly dependent on how the engineering process goes.
So we currently have this running in our own lab with for up to 100 streams, and we're trying to make it work really reliable before we release it to the public.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yep. If anyone wants to, download the latest development branch, they're welcome to go through the steps of setting up an internal network, and this network harness may even be able to assist in that. But it's certainly a very early experience in terms of productization around this. Cool. All right. So thanks for all the Streamflow updates and discussion. So topic 2 that we had for this call was to take a step back and to kind of revisit how someone can use the Live Peer Protocol Explorer to, as a token holder, to stake their tokens and claim the rewards and fees, and withdraw their token. Just because we've had a lot of new members of the community in Discord, in Telegram, new token holders who are discovering the project. And so we want to kind of give the opportunity to show them how to use this and to answer questions that people have been asking over and over and over again. So I know Nelson's been collecting some of the questions and can help moderate that. But Nelson, would it be helpful if I just screen shared and showed the basic steps to using the Explorer?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we'll start with that, and keep in mind here what we're going to be doing is we're going to be submitting transactions on Ethereum mainnet to the Live Peer protocol, and sometimes these transactions take a little while to confirm, or data may be slow to come back from the blockchain. So we might have to sit and wait a little bit, but I'm going to click over to a live demo here and get this going. Let's see. Cool. So can someone let me know? Can you see my screen as the Live Peer Explorer right now?
Yep.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to click on MetaMask. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's technically a different window, but basically I have an Ethereum account and MetaMask is unlocked. My account has 0.12 ETH, and it has 16 Live Peer token, or 16 LPT. So these are kind of unstaked LPT that are sitting in my Ethereum account. And here in the browser, I'm looking at the My Account page at explorer.livepeer.org. And what it shows me is it shows me that I am currently bonded, so I have some tokens staked. It shows me the delegate, so it shows me the node who I have staked my tokens towards. And it shows me how much stake I have, so 12.8 live peer tokens have been staked. And then down below here, it shows my unclaimed earnings. So this is how much LPT and ETH I have earned, in this case, over the last 40 rounds or 40 days in the protocol. And one thing you'll notice here is, I have 12.87 LPT staked, and I have 0.87 LPT earnings. So what I did originally 40 days ago was I staked 12 LPT towards this node. And since that time, I have accrued 0.87 LPT more tokens. And this stake kind of area of the page over here actually shows me my unclaimed earnings as it counts as part of my stake, because I'm currently, it kind of counts as what I've staked, and I'm earning inflation based off of the total number of what I staked plus my unclaimed earnings. So that's to say that, once you stake once, you don't have to keep coming back to claim earnings every day or restake. The value that you stake continues to accrue. So we're going to come back to this page in a minute, but I just wanted to give an idea of the current status of my account. So now I'm going to go to the transcoders page. This is kind of the landing point. When you go to explorer.livepeer.org, this shows you all the different transcoders on the network, and it shows you the reward cut, which is kind of what commission they're charging you as a delegator. It shows you the fee share. This is the percent of fees that they collect that they will share back to you as a delegator. It shows you the price they're charging for a segment of video encoding. This mechanic will change a little bit in Streamflow, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And then it kind of sorts them by how much total stake is delegated towards them. Finally, interesting column here is the missed reward calls number. You want to see 0 here. If a transcoder misses a reward call, they're essentially giving up, they're kind of losing out on some of the inflationary rewards, and you'll lose that as a delegator. I should also say that there's been some bugs reported in the Explorer. We're having some caching issues with the source of data for this number, and it's possible, because I'm seeing these all as 0, I may need a refresh. There may be something incorrect. I do see one down here that has one missed reward call, but definitely worth digging into the actual underlying data a little deeper. There's some open bugs around this as well. Okay, so down here, there's this node 4F475. I can make this a little bigger. I highlighted it in green because I'm already staked towards it. But for any node, you see this kind of bond button. And when you want to stake your tokens, I mentioned I have MetaMask. I have 16 tokens that are not staked sitting in my MetaMask. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just find the node that I want to investigate. You can click on them if you want more information. We'll wait a second for the Explorer to load here, where it'll show me information about their reward cut, fee share. Maybe I need a refresh. It refreshed the whole page. Give it a second here. As mentioned, there's some current issues being reported and being investigated with the Explorer.
And so, Doug, if we go back a step, so when we're delegating to a transcoder, what are we doing there? And am I losing my tokens? Am I sending my tokens to the transcoder, or are the tokens held in the smart contract?
Great question. So what you're doing is basically you're saying you yourself don't want to run hardware. You don't want to be an active transcoder. What you're doing is you're saying, I will stake my tokens towards one of these other people running hardware, and they'll run it on my behalf. And to answer your question directly, no, you're not giving them your token. What you're doing is you're sending it into the LivePeer protocol smart contracts, where there's some accounting that indicates, well, your tokens are now being staked on their behalf, and you're providing some increased security. So note that your stake is now at risk. If that transcoder cheats maliciously and harms the network, then their stake can be what's called slashed. It can be taken away. And if you've delegated towards them, then theoretically yours can be taken away as well. I should mention in the alpha, we don't actually have delegator slashing. So right now there's no or very little risk around delegation. You do kind of, you're subject to protocol risk. If there's a bug, you could be affected. But eventually, when we get to Streamflow and have delegator slashing, you're kind of putting your tokens at risk. They're sitting in a smart contract. As long as this node performs honestly and doesn't cheat maliciously and harm the network, then your tokens will be safe. And in return, you're earning reward tokens. You're earning newly minted inflationary LivePeer token.
And so as those rewards come in, will they come in directly to my wallet? Or how does that work?
Right. So that's where they'll come into the LivePeer protocol. They won't show up immediately in your wallet. They will show up on that My Account dashboard, and I'll return to that in a few minutes and look at that in a little more detail. Eventually, you'll have the ability to withdraw them to your wallet when you want to, but they don't immediately appear there. So let me show you the steps to stake. I'm going to click bond on this node here, and it's going to pop open this dialog. And the first thing you have to do if you haven't set a transfer allowance is you just have to authorize the LivePeer protocol to transfer these tokens on your behalf. It is not authorizing an individual to do it or any person to do it or the transcoder to do it. It's just saying that the protocol smart contract has permission to transfer your tokens for you when you stake or when you bond. By the way, the word stake and bond is used a little interchangeably. We're trying to do some work to clean that up and make it consistent, but essentially they mean the same thing. It means locking your tokens in these contracts. And so you could set if I want to stake 2 tokens, I could set the transfer allowance to 2, so it can only transfer 2 tokens. But because it's a smart contract, I know the code, I know it can't maliciously transfer more than what I authorize. I just set a high transfer allowance here so that in the future I don't have to keep reauthorizing it. So this contract is authorized to transfer my tokens. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose how many tokens I want to bond. Let's say I'm going to bond 6 more tokens, and I'm going to press the submit button. And that pops open MetaMask, where I can kind of set the gas parameters. You don't have to change them, but I can confirm the transaction. And now I have submitted my staking transaction, my bond transaction to the Ethereum network, and I will wait for that transaction to confirm, at which point I will have 6 more tokens staked towards this node. And it'll be great if it confirms quickly. It was estimating it would take about 24 seconds. We'll see if that's actually the case. There we go. We get the nice success dialog. I have successfully bonded my tokens. I can view my delegating dashboard to see more. And here we go. Now I'm looking at the staking tab of my own account. It shows that I'm still bonded to the same delegate. And now instead of 16.87 tokens staked, I have 18 tokens staked. Additionally, I now have I have 0 unclaimed earnings. Before, you may have noticed I had 0.875 unclaimed earnings of LPT. Let's talk a moment about this concept of claiming earnings, because this is one of the most confusing things within the protocol. So by staking, every single day, I'll earn a reward. I'll earn a little more LPT. And this is the question Nelson was just asking, where does that LPT go? Does it go to my Ethereum wallet? No, it doesn't go to your Ethereum wallet. It just sits in the live peer protocol, waiting for you to withdraw it when you want. And you don't have to come and claim it or withdraw it ever. You can leave it sitting there because it will continue to count as staked tokens. You'll continue to earn more reward tokens as if it were already staked. So it's great. The average user doesn't have to ever come and claim these earnings. But due to a side effect of how all this needs to be implemented on Ethereum, you eventually need to come and pay a little Ethereum gas so that all the smart contract code can execute to kind of account for those unclaimed earnings and move those tokens kind of from a big pool that's just sitting inside the live peer protocol into being credited to your account specifically. And you don't need to worry about the details of how that works or why it's necessary, but it just needs to happen. It needs to be calculated for every single round or essentially every single day that passes. And the protocol can only, or Ethereum can only do enough computation in a single transaction to account for a couple hundred rounds at once. And we've currently set the limit to 100 rounds. And so it's about 100 days. And so nothing bad happens if you don't claim your earnings. But for every 100 rounds that pass, someone needs to pay some gas in order to update the accounting. And this is one of the most annoying kind of side effects of using Ethereum, is that you just have to submit this claim transaction if over 100 rounds have passed. They haven't, and you do a bonded relating action like staking or unstaking, withdrawing your fees, it'll automatically do all that accounting for you. So you don't have to actually call the claim transaction. But if over 100 rounds have passed, then you actually do have to come in and call the claim transaction. And in this unclaimed earnings section, there'll be a little button that says claim earnings. And you can just click it and submit a transaction and you'll get caught up. So Nelson, now might be a time for you or anyone, if you have a question, if that wasn't clear about that, or any questions around how rewards get credited to your account, now might be a good time to jump in so we can clarify that.
Okay, cool. And so if I don't claim those earnings, I will still be accruing interest on those earnings because they're still invested. So I guess it's similar to how
exactly
Uniswap functions, where it's just automatically reinvested.
Exactly. Yep. All the reward is automatically reinvested, and so you don't have to proactively claim earnings. If over 100 rounds have passed, you do actually have to submit that transaction in order to do anything else, like stake towards a different transcoder or unbond, just to update the accounting. But you're not losing anything by not doing it. And you could let 1,000 rounds pass. You wouldn't lose anything. You'll still be automatically earning as a result of that reward token. Okay,
brilliant. And is there any minimums to staking? So if I've just received the airdrop and I'm looking to stake, is there a minimum on that?
No minimum. And in fact, a lot of people who kind of received 2 live peer tokens or 2.4 live peer tokens, part of the Merkle mine, who started to stake it early on in the network, that's grown into quite a few more than 2 tokens by now. And so it's definitely worth staking no matter what amount of LPT you have.
Okay, and can I partially unbond my tokens, and how do I do that?
Good question. Okay, so this gets to the concept of what happens when you want to actually withdraw these tokens. And that gets to a concept called unbonding or unstaking, essentially. And to do that, all you do is back on your transcoder dashboard, you see right next to the bond button, there's an unbond button over here. And you just click that, and that will ask you, it'll give you some information. about what unbonding is. The second point is really important. It says the unbonding period. Once you unbond, it takes 7 days or 7 rounds in order to withdraw your token. And so from the time you submit this transaction, you'll have a 7-day waiting period before you can actually withdraw the tokens into your wallet. You have and the reasons around that are basically, once you stake, you're basically aligned with the network and it creates security. You don't want to do anything that harms the network while you're staked, because harming the network may harm the value of your token, and you can't actually withdraw those tokens in order to do something else or sell them because you have this waiting period. And right now it's 7 days during the alpha. We'd always communicate the intention is that, like other networks, Cosmos, Ethereum 2.0, Tezos, et cetera, it should and likely, hopefully should increase to something on the order of months instead of days to really create that alignment. But for now it's 7 days, and that would take like community governance to change that in the future. And so that's kind of how the unbonding period works. In order to actually unbond, you would just say how many tokens you want to unbond. And you could say, I have 18.875. I could copy this number and I could unbond all of them, or I could, unbond 2 LPT and just submit a transaction, and that'll start the waiting period. So before I do this, I'm going to press cancel because I've actually already done a partial unbond. Oops. I've already done a partial unbond with this account. And what you see here is I have this is the My Account page again. And it says I have pending live peer token balance of 2. So that I clicked on it, it takes me back to the staking page of my account. And I scroll down and it says, oh, I have a 2 LPT unbonding transaction that I submitted weeks ago. And the 7-day unbonding period has completed and I can withdraw my LPT. So here, if I want to actually withdraw these into my wallet, I'll press the withdraw button. And that will ask me to confirm another Ethereum transaction. And I'm not going to do it right now, but if I did that, then those 2 LPT would show up back in my Ethereum wallet where I have possession of them to do whatever I want, transfer them, etc. Whereas up until that point, they're still sitting in the live peer protocol smart contracts. The other option I have is the rebond button, and I can restake them back towards this node.
And Doug,
so,
can I be
yep.
Bonded to 2 different transcoders with the same Ethereum address?
You cannot right now. Right now, you can only be staked towards 1 transcoder per address. And the obvious workaround to that is, well, just split your tokens across a couple addresses to stake towards a couple different transcoders. That'd be a nice feature to have. And there's, the protocol would have to be updated a little bit. A lot of product would have to be built around managing all your stakes to different nodes and your unbonds and whatnot. So there's certainly work to do to enable that, but there's no feasible reason why that's not possible. But for now, the workaround is just split across a couple different accounts.
Okay, great, thanks. And one other question. So I've seen on Staked that the yield on LivePeer is much higher than a number of other projects. Why is that the case, and is that sustainable?
Yes, so that's a really interesting question, and that goes to the kind of heart of live peer economics. So the best way to look at that is probably looking at scout.cool, which is a dashboard that shows kind of the network economic state at the moment. Can you guys see the scout.cool dashboard that I pulled up?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So right now, it shows that the current inflation rate per round is 0.114%. So I'm going to multiply that times 365 to look at a kind of annual inflation rate. And the number I get is about 41%. So there's 12.2 million live peer tokens right now. And at this level of inflation, there'd be 40% more tokens at the end of the year, right? So what is 40% of that number? It is approximately 500, what is this? About 5 million more LPT, right? But that 5 million LPT over the next year doesn't get split evenly across all 12 million tokens. It only gets split across the staked tokens, or in this case, the 4 million tokens that are 4.031 million tokens that are staked. And so if you do the math on what is my staking yield, or what is my rate of return on staking tokens, it's 5 million tokens being split proportionately across 4 million tokens. So you're getting kind of greater than 100% returns in terms of token volume, in terms of number of tokens that you'll own. So, on the surface, it sounds really compelling, right? I'm getting a lot more tokens by staking. And that's true, it is compelling. You should stake because you're earning inflation, and those who don't stake are not earning inflation. But I think it's also important to look at the cost of all of this inflation. So, just printing new tokens doesn't mean that each token has the same value as the previous token. In an efficient market, the token value actually would decrease as new tokens are printed because the network value stays the same. And I think certainly with a lot of inflation, you may see that occur. But what you should think about is, well, if I own tokens that represent, 0.01% of the network, and I stake them, then over time, I will own more than 0.01% of this network. I'll own 0.02% or 0.03%. And it's kind of that percent ownership is what entitles you to do the work to earn the fees that are flowing through the network. And that's the thing that's compelling to increase your value of over time if this network becomes really useful and a lot of fees are flowing through. And that's where kind of the real long-term economic value comes from. So back to your question of like, is this high inflation rate sustainable? Well, there's a whole other story related to this, which is this inflation rate will come back down dramatically once we pass 50% participation. So it won't be high ever, but I don't think of it as kind of unsustainable inflation where just new tokens are being printed willy-nilly. I think of it as kind of the ownership and the right to do work on this network is being just reallocated towards those who are participating and away from those who are not participating and just leaving tokens sitting on the sidelines and not participating in the network. And so rather than think of it as inflation and debasing monetary supply, I actually almost think of it as a long ongoing multi-year token distribution mechanism where those who are doing work in the network are the ones who are earning the token over the first few years of the network, and then the inflation rate will settle out at a kind of steady state equilibrium where it ends up wherever it needs to be in order to maintain 50% of the tokens staked at any one time. So I know that was a mouthful and covered a lot of different things, but that's how I think about the inflation and the economic model.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. And so when that inflation rate starts to come back down, will it come back down at the same rate that it went up?
Yeah, the same exact rate. So right now it increases by, I believe it's 3 1/millionths per day. As soon as if the current participation rate, which you see right now is 32.8, any day that's over 50%, the inflation rate will decrease by that same 3 1/millionths per day. And eventually what you believe will happen is people will, choose to unstake if they, don't believe the inflation is worth it when the inflation rate becomes too low. and then when it creeps back up, they'll restake, and eventually you'll find an inflation rate that always maintains, approximately 50% of the network being staked. And I can't tell you where that'll be. It might be, 1% kind of annual inflation. It might be 20%. It might be something in between. It's whatever the market determines it needs to be.
Okay, and one last question. When picking a transcoder to delegate to, what should I be looking for, and how do I know who to delegate to?
Good question. So back on the transcoders dashboard, there's a couple components to this. So one of them is this column, missed reward call. And again, I have a sense that what we're looking at right now may not be accurate because I'm not seeing any missed reward calls reported. So we're gonna have to look into whether that's the case. But if transcoders have missed the number of reward calls, that means that each day they miss a reward call is a day where you are not earning your LPT reward that you are entitled to. And so that's kind of a reliability metric of just, are they doing their job of interacting with the protocol and running the software reliably? So that's one important thing to look at. Another really important thing to look at is this reward cut column, which is essentially saying what is their commission. And if you were just looking at straight economics, you might say, oh, I prefer a node with a lower commission. But you also want to look at their reliability. Are they missing reward calls? Because it doesn't matter if the commission is low if they're not actually generating the token. And then finally, you may want to look at their social kind of campaign or components, and it's debatable to people whether that should account for anything. But many of these nodes are actually kind of campaigning and forum.livepeer.org and indicating how they're using the proceeds of LPT from this reward cut, from this commission. And you'll notice some of them have a high reward cut. Like this one has 50% reward cut. And so why would you ever stake towards it? Well, it's using its commission in order to fund community development. It runs a grants program, and it is allocating funding to people developing tools like Supermax and livepeer.studio and livepeer.tools and translations and community growth and all sorts of great efforts. And so you may say, well, I don't want to delegate all my tokens towards it. That's a high reward cut. But I think it's worth delegating 20% of my tokens towards that because the work that it's funding is actually growing the project and the community and will result in a really great ecosystem. And then many of the other nodes are kind of campaigning around different efforts of things they're developing or governance experiments they're running. And so, kind of as you're prioritizing decentralization, experimentation, the ecosystem, I think it's awesome to take that into account as to who you delegate as well. But again, I think forum.livepeer.org, there's a lot of debate, a lot of campaigning, a lot of information about some of the cool things that transcoders are doing. I guess it's also worth noting, right now, a lot of the usage of the network has been kind of one-off test demonstrations. There's not a high amount of fees flowing through, but in Streamflow, the network scales, fees are going to be a huge input because that's ETH that people are paying to use the network. And these transcoders are saying they're going to share some of that ETH back to you if you delegate towards them. And then we'll get into a whole level of like viewing their performance, and how many fees they're earning and what they're sharing back. And so it's a little premature to expect a lot of fees right now, but that's going to be a huge input in the future.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. That's really helpful. Did anyone have any other questions they'd like to run through?
Other questions? Anything in the chat room over here? Oh, I see one thing in the chat. Please share how people can get LivePeer token. So you may be a recipient of LivePeer token from the Merkle mine. All Ethereum holders as of March of last year with at least 0.1 ETH received some LivePeer tokens. So first of all, check your wallet and see if there's any LivePeer token there, or put your account into Etherscan and see if it shows any LivePeer token. There's a couple exchanges that have listed the token. Radar Relay is a decentralized exchange. that's kind of permissionless, and you can trade ETH for it. Poloniex is a centralized exchange that listed token. And then finally, there's a grants program and some community nodes that are funding various efforts with tokens. If you prefer to contribute by development, there's been Gitcoin bounties. There's the grants program to build things or participate in community or translation. So join the Discord, ask on the forum. There's lots of ways to kind of access live peer token. I see another question coming through the chat here from Ryan. For orchestrators, do unclaimed rewards count towards stake as well, or do they have to be claimed in order to be counted towards stake? So unclaimed rewards do count as stake. You do not have to claim rewards in order for it to be counted as stake. It's a common question and source of confusion, but no, you don't have to come back and press the claim button every day in order for it to count as stake. You never have to come back and press the claim button. One thing we talked about is, well, we should rename that. It shouldn't be called claim rewards and fees. It should be called something much less confusing, like update my state accounting, which people will be totally confused about in its own right, but at least they won't think they have to do it in order to earn rewards and fees. But we can brainstorm on that. Question here from Victor. Can you elaborate on the network harness? Yaya or Eric, does one of you guys want to take that question?
Yeah, I can go ahead if Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the main idea was we wanted a way to test the network for Streamflow in a controlled environment, and we already hit that target, and we hit 100 current streams in our testnets. But we faced an issue of, okay, how does a transcoder or orchestrator would deploy the system? How would they install it, and all of that? So there has been a bit of consensus around the engineering team that we could use the same testing harness with few modifications to make it a deployment or a network harness that allows you to basically run a whole bunch of containers, and they would be automated as much as possible with minimum effort. Before this call, I started like a deployment, a very small deployment. Let me get you the link for that. Right now, we use that to test, but hopefully once Streamflow lands, we'll be able to basically use that for deployments. As you can see, I sent a link for a Grafana dashboard. This is just a tiny deployment, but it will give you like all sorts of details about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As I said, just an automation tool to get you hitting the network as soon as possible. Hope that covers it. Right.
Well, thanks, Jaya. Yeah,
no problem.
Great. All right, coming to the end of the hour here. Thanks so much to everyone for joining, and for Nelson for moderating, collecting questions on Telegram and Discord. Feel free to hit us up anytime in Discord. The whole development team hangs out there and can elaborate on anything that wasn't clear or answer any other questions. So thanks for joining. This is recorded. We should have it uploaded later today or later this week for those who couldn't join. And we'll have another call in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.